today we're gonna go through a very common question or issue that comes up is why Meta is basically spending all my money into bad looking ads, and obviously this in quotation because we're gonna see how why this is actually a good thing and how Meta actually optimizes and what's obviously the decision making process if you are into a scenario on that, because obviously sometimes it's not that easy. I do get it. Meta just likes to spend a lot of money on ads that obviously having a lot higher cost per acquisition or higher cost per lead and lower ROAS, right? So I have here a scenario on one specific campaign where we spent around 50K, which is going to be the kind of scaling campaign over the last 30 days. You can see here clearly this Meta is building all the spend, like exclusively, like more than 41%. And maybe this is not like the best example that I put here, because obviously you will see on like most accounts, it's actually a bit more even. So you can get like 20K on the first ad and like 10 on the second and like 5 on and it's like a bulk of the spend is like on those top 3 or 4 ads, and you see massive fluctuations, right? You see that top ad now has like 71 cost per acquisition, where you can see that the second and third ad and the fourth ad even is like having like below 40 or like on or below 55. Obviously it's highly dependent on like what's your cost per acquisition, right? But on this occasion specifically, it's like, and you probably, wondering like, do I need to like pause the first ad? Why is Meta like pivoting all the spend into that first ad, right? Why on those bad ads? So my camera just died, so that's why you see a different outfit. But I digress. Essentially, Meta is a mechanism to get more reach and more volume. Meta will always optimize for the highest amount of volume, especially if you have the optimization as highest volume on an ad setting, which essentially means that it will always prioritize driving the most amount of purchases and revenue for your business, because then obviously um, it has each own personal interest to obviously make you money, because obviously they make money and we then spend even more money, which again kind of makes sense from their end. Now, up to this, no, now into this specific example here, you will see that over the last 30 days, you will see almost 90% of the spend. And maybe this has not been the greatest example to showcase, like I said, because usually ad number 2, number 3, number 4, depending on what you're spending, is actually much closer to uh, like the 15-20% of the total budget, right? So essentially, you will see here that the number ad has a CPA of 50, of 70, I'm sorry, and you will see the second ad had 64, third 41. Again, you will see a few purchases around 40 and 50, which let's say that you have a cost per purchase of like 60. It kind of makes sense to think that pausing the first ad, that second was spent, and pivoting to those other ads is a very sensible thing to do. Now, here's the number one mistake that I'm seeing if you do this. If you pause it, I almost guarantee you, unless you have an ad that has been running for quite a while and now has fatigued or whatever, quite a bit, I guarantee you that you will see a way higher cost per purchase on an ad level once those other ads start getting spent. Because, like we mentioned, Meta will always likely people that spend into the ad that is going to be the most scalable. It was basically going to drive the best revenue and the best possible purchases for the business. Now, with that said, I think it's going to be very, very important to see what we can do in this occasion. So if you pause it, you're likely going to see high cost of purchase because you're going to get spent into ads that are not top of funnel ads. That those ads are having a lower cost per purchase just because I think just because they are the messaging there is not tailored for that top of funnel reach. That's why Meta is not really pivoting spend there. If we dug a bit deeper, we will see that those are naturally more middle and bottom of funnel, and it likely not really resonating with at least a broad reach of people and customer segments. So when we force a bit more spend into them, we will likely see cost of purchase getting up, because again it's not going to be effective at capturing those called the audiences. Whereas the first ad here, yes, we have much higher cost per purchase, but we're also getting most of the volume here, right? and we are getting most of the volume at this cost per purchase, which seems to be the best and most sensible solution out of kind of everything. Now, next steps here. What can we do in this occasion, right? Because obviously this would be the likely thing. Meta will probably people spending into a couple ads, right? So the most important thing to do here is try to obviously optimize on those other ads so we can get even more spend on those other ads that are doing well. What I mean by that, for example, this ad probably needs killing. This ad has already been killed. As you can see, we have a few more ads that are looking promising. So we want to obviously naturally pivot a bit more spend through those ads, right? Now, next is going to be we need to always have a creative testing campaign that we test new concepts and new ads that we want to naturally fit into this campaign, which is our core scaling campaign. And after a point, you will see Meta naturally picking up more spend on some of the other ads if the first top ad is starting fatiguing because it can see some of those new ads that they can deliver better cost per purchase at scale. Now, obviously, it's not always that way because if it was, we wouldn't be here talking about it. But essentially, when you see an ad that has been your top performing ad for quite a while, I think it kind of makes sense to just first assess if this ad has been running for quite a few weeks and months, um, and then obviously start fatiguing, then it's probably a point that we want to start phasing out. Now, how we can do this? Yes, after a point, we will likely try to pause it to give more spend, but the first step is having strong enough creative testing and creative concepts into that specific campaign so we can see other ads getting more spend. Now, if obviously this specific ad was, getting 100 plus cost per purchase, it means that we haven't really acted fast enough and we don't have anything to really support the level of amount of scale. If we pause it, right? So I'll probably pause it, lower the budget, and then try to build again from that point onwards, right? So again, I think that's one key area. And again, number two, we can also test some of those quote unquote zombie ads that don't have spent, but obviously we have seen some positive results in testing into a separate ad set. So we can see if Meta also gives maybe more spend there. And again, it just hasn't been effective in distributing spend correctly. And we can do this by adding another ad set in that core campaign and having CBO budget and then minimum spend so we can obviously try to allocate spend better. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. I hope that was at least gave you a bit more understanding why Meta pivoting most of the spend is giving all the spend into the balloting ads. And short answer is get better creative into the account, creative test a bit more. And obviously, a good tip is optimize on those other ads, those lower ads that don't have a lot of spend, don't have a lot of purchases, but they have high cost per purchase, so we can give as much as we can gain efficiency as much as possible. And obviously, number two, try to first phase that main ad out. But as you can see here, it's not easy for me to just pause that straight away. It gets like 90% of the volume here. So you will see the impact that it will have from a revenue perspective. So that was a video for today. I hope you found it helpful. If you want to work with me one-to-one or some other free resources that I have in the description, feel free to get them if you look at the description. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.